Hello everybody and welcome to the channel and to this rebuild of the Wellington, or fix of the Wellington. So as you can see, I've taken out the box that I used. Actually I designed it for the Wellington back in the day, still kept it. There's the model from the top, still looking quite okay, and then from the bottom I've started to do some things. One thing that I didn't remember that I'd done, but I was happy that I'd done. When I changed the servo out the first time, I created some kind of a hatch, and it was relatively straightforward to take it out. And the good thing is that I can reuse it. I'll need to recover it, right, because I did cut into it and there was a bit of damage. But then when the moment comes, I can also use it to close down the servo area, right? So that's a good thing. The servo is still in there. As you can see, I've already removed the horn. This is the control. You can't see it, right? If I use some pliers, this is the control line that moves the aileron. You can see there on the left. You see, this is what is giving some movement, but not enough apparently. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to cut it here, and after I've freed it up from the places where it actually goes to the ailerons, I'll be able to take it out. So that's one of the steps, and of course then I need to free up this servo, and more importantly I need to unplug it from here using the pliers to point here. You can't see it, maybe there's a little socket there in which it goes into, so I need to pull it out from there, pull the cable out from here, somehow free up the servo, and then basically replace it. Now before I do all that, well, one thing that I've done also is I've cut my Y cable. I've taken off this connector, which is kind of the standard connectors for the normal receivers, not the ones that I'm using now. And I've also cut the old servo cable off. This is the servo that came out of here that I'm glad I kept. And I've connected the cables in. I hope, like, I've matched the colors, so I hope the colors are really the same. And I've soldered there the cables, and I hope that it will somehow hold. This cable here is very thin, like each cable is like 2 wires. I think this one is significantly stronger, so I'm not sure if it's going to be enough to transmit all the electricity that needs to go through it. So before actually I put it in, my idea is to plug it in, put it in there, and test if the servos will actually work as they're supposed to. So if that doesn't work, then it's kind of the end of the project, I think. So I will have to figure it out, but that's the first thing. Do a test. Maybe I might actually thread it through already, because it's going to be difficult to plug and unplug. So thread it through, unplug this one first, the one that's already there, plug this one, put in the servos, make sure that they move kind of in the right direction. You also have to spend some time on that, and if all that goes well, then the project goes ahead. If not, then I'm not sure. I have to figure it out then, right? So this is where I am up to now. So some progress, but still quite a lot to do. So follow me along on this one. I'll keep you posted. No idea how this will turn out. Hopefully it ends with a flying airplane. And an update on the rebuild. I managed to ruin, let's see if you can see it, to ruin this connector from the old servo. I wanted to use it again, but I basically pulled the cables out, and these are so small that I don't think I'll manage to get them in. But anyhow, that is out. I make a little pile of things that I'm extracting from the model to kind of guess how much weight I'm adding. Actually, it's probably adding. I managed to do all the connectors. I put in already the new cable, and I managed in the end also to connect it, to bind it up, and it seems to be working. So that was good. Everything seems to be working in the direction it should. These are then the new servos. So that's for the electronic part, which was the important thing. If that didn't work, then no, I didn't know what to do, but that works well. Next step that I've done, I've extracted, as I said, the previous servo. I've taken it out, taking out also the push rod, and kind of amputated all the control horns that I had here. And this is all the bits and pieces that came out, well, some of them at least, that I've been pulling out, right? So there were control horns and the hinges that were a bit flimsy, so I managed to to get that out. I've been using also the power tool, which is fun, much faster than using just a saw or something, especially on the metal parts. So the next step now is to thread, actually disconnect this, thread then these cables in, so that I can actually glue the servos in here somehow, right? So I hope the cables are long enough. They should be, but I need to thread the cables through, and that's going to be very challenging. I do have a small hole there where the wire was, but of course in the ribs that are in the middle, that hole is not going to be big enough for that connector to go through, for this connector to go through. So I'm afraid that the only option is going to be to actually open up the tissue on the underside of the wing on 1, 2, 3, 4 panels on each side. So quite a big piece of surgery somehow has to be done there. I'm also thinking once I do that, maybe I'll already fix the wing. I didn't want to fix the wing until I knew it would actually be worth it somehow. So now it seems it's going to be worth it, so I might actually do it. So new update and progress on how it's going. So from the top you don't notice much other than that there is a hole here. I've had to take out also this part of the of the tissue because it was all wrinkled up and damaged. Let's see if I turn it around, and here it's much more visible progress. I've taken out some panels of the tissue, as you can see, on both wings. This wing, which is the left wing, is the one that was partially torn off, so I've also had to remove this panel, and I've glued it in place. I had to click it in place. At some points I wasn't quite sure how it went, but here, for example, at the front I managed to stuff in some glue there in some of the cracks. I'm now holding it with these pegs, and also at the back part there, making sure that the glue is still wet, so making sure that it's as glued as it can get. So basically that's the progress on that. And then basically I wanted also to document the fact that it looks a bit awkward with so many panels missing. Here are some of the panels. It's actually quite strong tissue because I put there quite a few layers of the water and glue mix, as I don't use dope. So water and glue mix is actually surprisingly tough, which is good, right? So the next step is going to be, I've also started to glue the engine mount again, a spot of glue in one of the mounts, so somehow to get some progress there, at least with the glue, then overnight it'll set. And then the next is going to be to take the servos off, maybe before that to start to make the holes, drill the holes a bit bigger. There are some holes here where the wire went, let's see if you can see it, where the push rod was going, so I'll just expand those. I want to integrate the servo into this rib and then make this bigger so that I can put in the connector also on this one, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do this one because I want to try to save this panel because it's okay, so I want to try to save it. I'll have to figure out how I get into, let's see if you can see it, into this hole and make it bigger. So maybe slowly with a knife I might get in there and be able to thread the servo wire through. I'm not sure how it'll all be done because then I also have to connect them, and I'm fearing that the connection is in here, so might actually need to remove another panel. The other side is going to be easier because I had to remove more, so that should be more straightforward. But anyhow, coming along with some progress, and interesting to see the insides of the wing that I haven't seen for years, literally. Not very visible, but actually quite a lot of progress. Let me turn our patient around. I've managed to, let's see if I can point with something, to thread the wire. I had to cut out the holes for the servos on both wings, thread the wire through. In here there's also a wire, so I managed, that was probably the most challenging part, get the holes wide enough for the big connectors to go in, bring the connector out of the wheel well, connect it and then put it back in. On this other side, as this panel was open, then it was much easier, I didn't have to do it out here. But yes, so that's the progress. I've just done a test also to make sure that the servos turn in the right direction, and then the next step is probably going to be to start to glue the servos, I believe. I'll glue them in place. There's a little piece of wood that used to be here under the tissue here, so I'll try to put it in place also, glue it, let it set. This one I think survived the whole operation, kind of did. With that then it's going to be a question of either get the ailerons back on or start already with the tissue covering. So, and also connecting again the rudder push rod that I had to take off so that I could unplug it. So some more details still to go, but significant progress I would say today. And more visible progress on the Wellington rebuild. Let's see if I can show you here on the left wing. There's the left, yeah, this is the left wing. So I've already put on all the tissue. What I'm doing actually on both sides, I'm covering up the wheel well. Originally I'd opened it up hoping that it could fly with the undercarriage hanging down, but that was a bit of a fantasy. So I've covered it up. I've put already one layer of water glue on the tissue, so it's still drying and stretching a little bit. I'll have to put quite a few more. As you can see here, it's much more shiny because it's got a lot of layers of glue, and here it isn't yet. I'm also reusing the old tissue because there's a lot of glue on it, and it actually I think looks quite good, like shiny. What else? What was the servo hatch, which is now a cable hatch, or we can call the Bombay. I've also fixed up the tissue gaps. I needed to making a cutting here for the cables that are there, and then eventually I will also like seal it in with tissue because it shouldn't be opened, right? If everything works well, it should not be opened. On the other wing, on the right wing, I'm doing the same thing. I've got this one has just been glued on, so it hasn't been shrunk yet. And before I go on with covering up a little bit the whole of the servo, I want to reattach the aileron. I'm going to remove the old hinges. I've already done it actually. I'm going to put in new hinges, so I've got to do a bit of cuts and things like that, so that's going to be a bit of an operation. And then also the push rod that I've also put in here. I've put it here to the furthest hole on the servo and the closest hole on the aileron for maximum movement. So getting very close. I think the next update might actually be it. So here it is. Hopefully you saw a little bit of the movement, especially of the ailerons, which was the whole point of this. And on the top side we can see this patch of green is still not completely dry, a little bit wrinkled. I think I'm going to leave it kind of in the patch format. Also here somehow showing the scars of attempted flight. From underneath I think it looks okay. The worst part is of course then the battery head, not the battery heads, the Bombay, which I probably could have done it better, maybe one bigger piece, but I was kind of saving on material there, I'm not sure why. The other parts I think they went on together quite well. You see here also the servo arms, everything seems to be fine. I might need to trim it. One thing you can't see, because I was looking at the video of the flight, of the 20-second flight, you probably can't see it, but I think that the right wing, which is this one, has a little bit of a bigger incidence, and maybe that's why it has maybe bigger, greater angle of attack, so it has this tendency to roll to the left. So I might need to trim it by pulling the left aileron a little bit down to compensate. So anyhow, those are thoughts before the flight. Maybe I'll do it now, if not I probably will forget until I get to fly this. In overall, happy, fun experience. I think in overall, if I look at the weights, I think I added like 11 grams, I estimate 10 to 12 grams. I removed 4.6, all this material and also the push rod. So I removed 4.6, so I've added around 6 to 7 grams. And all of it around the center of gravity, maybe a little bit behind the center of gravity, because of the servo, the extra servo there that is maybe a little bit behind. So I do have 15 grams already in the battery hatch. I think I'm going to try, without doing any adjustments to that, just leave those 15 grams. There is also then the battery hatch. I'm also putting a little bit of glue in there which is maybe half a gram, I don't know, to fix that strut that actually had broken a little bit, and it took a hit and it survived quite well. So well designed, more than well built. So I think it's ready for, once I gather the courage and the weather and everything somehow lines up, to try to make another flying attempt. So in the meantime, I'm going to leave it a couple of days here on the desk until I bring up the next project, because I kind of like looking at it. I don't know why. I know it's ugly, but it's probably one of my best builds, I believe. In any case, as always, thank you everybody very much for watching and for following along, and I'll see you next time.